Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. With me is a very special guest today, Dr. Joseph Wu, the Foreign Minister of Taiwan, joining us live from Taipei. Dr. Wu, welcome to WION.
Well, thank you very much, Palki. Hello, India.
Your designation, sir, is Foreign Minister, and I've been wanting to ask you this question for a long time. But China does not recognize you as Foreign Minister of a country, and it puts pressure on other countries to not recognize you. So how do your counterparts in other countries address you when you meet them?
In most of the countries, they address me as Minister Wu. There shouldn't be any problem for any country to recognize me as Minister of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan. Even though China is trying to put pressure on some of the host countries not to address Taiwan as a country, not to address our former national title, the Republic of China, or not to interact with me. But most of the countries in the world are still interacting with Taiwan and recognize me as Foreign Minister of Taiwan.
And one country that is in the news, and I assume under a lot of pressure from Beijing, is Fiji. What happened in Fiji, sir?
On October 8th, our Fiji office was celebrating Taiwan's National Day, and they do it just like other countries celebrating their National Day, and we also celebrate our National Day in India. But the Chinese are trying to pressure many of the host countries like India not to call Taiwan a country, not to go together with Taiwan's National Day. And in Fiji, the Chinese diplomats over there gone a little bit overboard. They try to storm into our reception and they try to gather the information of the participants in our office. And at the end, it resorted to shoving and pushing. And one of our colleagues were injured. And of course, it just created a national anger over here in Taiwan. National Day is the most important day of Taiwan. But the Chinese were trying to resort to physical violence to stop us from celebrating our National Day. And that is totally unacceptable.
Indeed it is. But the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said, and I'm quoting, they're just acting as a guilty party, blaming the innocent. He's called this entire episode sheer nonsense.
And they also say that we don't have any diplomats in Fiji. Very often, the Chinese diplomats is trying to turn black into white, or trying to say something that is totally not true, and primarily is for their domestic consumption. But what is true is true, and the truth is that the Chinese diplomats in Fiji trying to storm into our reception in Fiji and resorted to physical violence, and the whole country in Taiwan, including the government and the opposition, and also the regular people here in Taiwan, just condemned what China has done in Fiji, and also condemned China for what they say or the lies they were telling.
So the Chinese say that you are not a country, so you don't have diplomats, you cannot have diplomats in Fiji, and they're putting pressure on Fiji to say the same. And yet, two Chinese diplomats carried out this quote-unquote attack, and one of your colleagues ended up in hospital. How are you going to hold China accountable if the host country is not going to take any action? Are they taking any action?
This is a very difficult situation for Taiwan. We don't have any diplomatic relations with most of the countries in the world. And of course, we would need the host country to be able to protect Taiwan diplomats, just like what they protect other diplomats from other countries. And in the case of Fiji, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs seems to be quite fair. They summoned the Chinese diplomats, and they also asked our diplomats to be present in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they try to mediate a way out for both sides. And I think the mediation is that the Fiji authority will send the police office to protect our activities in Fiji. So that is a situation seems to be acceptable, not only to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also to the regular people here in Taiwan. And we would urge the international community to look at Taiwan in a more serious manner. China doesn't recognize Taiwan, but that doesn't mean that China can pressure other countries not to recognize Taiwan as a country. Taiwan has a democracy which is being seen as a model in this part of the world. We have a democratically elected government over here. The president is very popular here in Taiwan and also very popular internationally. And sometimes people complain that our media is a little bit too free, but at least that is something that we treasure. And therefore, even if Taiwan does not have diplomatic relations with other countries, the relations between Taiwan and those countries that we do not have diplomatic relations should also carry out the functions that we should treasure.
Today it has happened in Fiji, tomorrow it could be some other country. Do you see your representatives posted elsewhere, including in countries like India, facing a similar threat?
Yes, we saw in quite a few places where the Chinese diplomats are trying to pressure the host countries not to do something with Taiwan. And in the case of India, the Chinese embassy in India was issuing order, so to speak, to the Indian press not to report about Taiwan's National Day, or not to call Taiwan a country, or not to recognize our president, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen. But of course, India is a huge free country, is the biggest democracy in the world with vibrant media. And therefore, I just don't think that what China is being doing to India is correct. And this happens to other countries as well. But most of the countries, especially those established democracies, they just ignore China.
Do you see a similar threat to your diplomats here in India?
Not at this moment. We do have very good relations with India, and we will continue to improve our relations with India, whether it's in culture, in medical area, or in labor exchanges, or in health relations with each other, or in other areas, trade and economic relations. We'll continue to improve relations with India so that the Indian people, Indian government recognize the importance of Taiwan and continue to safeguard Taiwan's status in India.
A new report says that China is building up its military presence to invade Taiwan. What is your assessment?
It is true that the Chinese are building up their military, targeting at Taiwan. Not only they try to build up their missile capabilities, but they also try to build up their conventional capabilities. And I think the target is Taiwan. There's no doubt about it. They're also trying to intensify their military activities around Taiwan. In the last couple of months, we saw the Chinese military activities, especially the activities in the air, have been increasing tremendously. They not only try to intrude into our air identification zone, they also try to cut through the medium line of the Taiwan Strait, which has been safeguarding peace and stability and status quo for decades. So this is very alarming. I think what is even more alarming is that the Chinese government does not hide its intention that they may want to use force against Taiwan. So we have been trying to beef up our own defense capabilities to prevent China from thinking that they can take Taiwan over very quickly. And we also try to procure military hardware from other countries like the United States. And we also try to work together with other countries for security areas. So this is the way we try to strengthen our own status to prevent China from launching attacks against Taiwan. But I think the most important thing is that if you look at the situation around China, the Chinese military is also intruding into the disputed area in East China Sea. They also try to build up their military installations in the South China Sea. And there was also border conflict with India, where the Chinese have been increasing their military deployment. And this is very alarming that China seems to be expanding its force of authoritarianism. And if you look at inside China, they also put a hard hand, a very heavy hand, in Xinjiang, in Tibet, and now in Mongolia. They are trying to prevent the Mongolians, especially the young students, from learning their own language. So this is very alarming. And if you add Hong Kong into this equation, we see that China is trying to export its authoritarian order. And Taiwan happens to be on the front line, and we have to be very careful. There's a traditional wisdom about authoritarianism. Whenever they have domestic difficulty, they would try to find a scapegoat outside their country to create crisis, to divert domestic attention. And Taiwan may be a very convenient scapegoat for the Chinese government, and we need to be careful, and we need to build more friendship with other countries. And India is a country that we want to be friends with.
What is the domestic difficulty that Xi Jinping is facing, according to you?
There are quite a few difficulties China is facing right now. The first, of course, the trade war in between the United States and China, and I think it's causing the Chinese economy to slow down. And the second is the pandemic. It's the origin of, China is the origin of the COVID-19. And I think COVID-19 is causing economic slowdown internationally. And of course, China relied on trade with other countries, and it's causing China economic slowdown as well. And in the last couple of months, there was a very serious flooding in central part and moving to northern part of China. So the general economic slowdown for an authoritarian country is going to deprive the top leadership from the legitimacy that the government is able to improve the livelihood of the people. So this has become a very serious situation for the leadership. And we have also seen indications that there's leadership problems inside China. This doesn't seem to me that the leadership is able to control everything. There are other factions or other leaders that may be willing to challenge the top leadership. So putting all this together, China is facing some difficulties.
But China says that it has defeated the virus. Their growth rate, they say, is touching 5%. There are pool parties happening. People are thronging the Great Wall of China. The box office numbers are beating the Americans. Do you think all of this is a lie, or all of these numbers are fudged?
The Chinese economy might be picking back up from the lowest point when the pandemic is hitting China very hard. But if they started from a very low point, and I think the current growth might not be enough to cover what they have already lost.
If it comes to a military confrontation, do you think there are countries that will stand up for Taiwan and actively participate and support you? And which will those countries be, according to you?
This is our position. Taiwan is our country. And Taiwan government and Taiwan military has the sole responsibility of defending our own country. And we have said it again and again, that the government, the people are determined to defend themselves. And that is the reason why we spend more in our military. We try to buy more weapons for our own protection, and we try to train our military according to modern principles. So this is the way we try to show to the international community that Taiwan is absolutely determined to protect itself. And of course, if we are not able to protect ourselves, or if we are not determined to protect ourselves, we have no right to ask other countries to provide support to Taiwan when it comes to the absolute necessary point. But I do see that the United States has been making its presence known in this region. They have shown to other countries in this part of the world that their Navy or even their Air Force is here to deter the aggression. But I need to point to the fact that Taiwan is responsible for its own defense, and we are absolutely determined to defend ourselves. And it's not just defending ourselves in military terms. I should also say that Taiwan is a democracy and proud to be a democracy. And what we see is that the Chinese authoritarianism is trying to make an outward expansion. And under these kinds of circumstances, Taiwan is on the front line. And we protect ourselves, not just to protect our own sovereignty and protect our own territory. We are also trying to protect freedom and democracy. And we believe that we have that responsibility to safeguard democracy and freedom from being overrun by authoritarianism.
The US is going into an election and the anti-China sentiment is palpable. Do you fear that at some point Taiwan will get caught in the US-China tug of war?
If you listen to what some of the key decision makers in the United States describing the relations with Taiwan, is that the U.S. relations with Taiwan is independent of other countries. U.S.-Taiwan relations have their own merits, and we treasure that. We will continue to improve our relations with the United States, no matter how the U.S. relations with other countries change. The relations between Taiwan and the United States, of course, is very important for Taiwan. And we appreciate the fact that the U.S. key decision makers continue to call Taiwan a democratic success story, a reliable partner, and a force for good in the world. And that is a very good description of Taiwan, and we'll continue to improve our relations with the United States. And no matter what happened in between the United States and China, we will continue to work together with the United States and other like-minded countries. We want to make friends, and at the same time, we want to make contributions to the international community so that the like-minded countries in the world understand that Taiwan is a force for good in the world.
World powers have begun speaking up for Taiwan, and they recognize Taiwan's contribution to all the things you mentioned and the fight against the Wuhan virus. But you remain out of the United Nations. Do you see that changing in the near future?
I'm seeing slight changes a little bit by a little bit. Give you an example. We try to participate in the World Health Organization, and this year it's a virtual conference in May this year, and we are seeing more and more countries willing to come out and speak for Taiwan. And it's not just the United States or Japan. Now there are more European countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and etc. They are willing to come out and support Taiwan's participation in the World Health Organization. And I certainly hope that someday India can also see the value of Taiwan participating in the World Health Organization and support Taiwan's participation in the World Health Organization. So that is the reason why we have the hope that Taiwan will become part of the World Health Organization or in the UN system in the future. But before we are able to become a member or an observer of the United Nations or in the World Health Organization, we will continue to make contributions to the international community in whatever way we can.
A major row had erupted, Dr. Wu, when Taiwan had claimed that it had shot of a warning about the coronavirus outbreak in China way back in December last year. What was your assessment on the origin of this virus, and would you say that China is guilty of a cover-up?
To us, there's no doubt. When we saw some internet discussions in China back in December last year, our health experts in our CDC have got nervous, and therefore they sent an email to the World Health Organization and also sent an email to the Chinese Health Authority asking them what is going on. When we saw the information like SARS-like atypical pneumonia or patients being treated in isolation, that means human transmission. So that is a situation we need to be very careful of. So we try to prepare ourselves. At the same time, we send email to the WHO and to the Chinese health experts and health authorities, asking them information. We don't have any hesitation. We started checking the passengers coming back from Wuhan on board. So to us, there is no doubt that Wuhan is the origin of this pandemic throughout the world. And we think that investigation of where the pandemic is originated from or try to have an international cooperation to see how we can stop the pandemic from continuing to spread is very important for us. And Taiwan is one of those countries that seems to be quite successful in dealing with the pandemic. And we want to share our experiences and our know-how and our way of dealing with it with other countries. And our health sector and our hospitals have some exchanges with some Indian institutions as well. And that proved to be very useful for those Indian institutions in learning our experience. And we will continue to do that with any other country who want to learn from us.
Did the WHO, the World Health Organization, underplay the threat at the time of the outbreak?
I think this is already an international consensus in this regard. At the beginning, the WHO did not seem to be identifying the coronavirus as a very serious threat to the international community. And the consensus is that when the WHO started to get serious, when it is too late. We certainly hope that this is a hard lesson for the international community, just like SARS was a very hard lesson for Taiwan. And if COVID-19 is a very serious lesson for the WHO and for the international community, I think we need to pay attention to any transmittable diseases can be transmitted among human beings in a very serious way to prevent the next wave of pandemic from happening again.
Yesterday, we ran a detailed report, Dr. Wu, on how much this pandemic has cost the world. People who contract the virus, their body never fully recovers, so there's a cost on your body. Families are going into debt because the cost of treatment is high. And countries are suffering because jobs are being lost, the economies have suffered. Can China be held accountable in a court of law for such a pandemic cover-up? And if yes, will Taiwan testify against Beijing?
Well, Taiwan is not one of those countries that is affected very seriously. And if the international community wants to look at the origin of the problem and they want to do a more thorough investigation, that is something that would be very helpful in preventing the next pandemic from taking place. And if there's a need for Taiwan experts to testify or to join in this investigation, I think Taiwan will be very happy to do it. And when you mention about the countries that are being affected very seriously, look at Europe, look at the United States, Brazil, and look at India. These are all the countries that are being very affected very seriously. And of course, we certainly hope that the pandemic can subside very soon so that the economic activities or people's livelihood can resume in a normal way. But before that, I think we need to think of one very serious question. That is how we should prevent the next pandemic from taking place.
The people of India see Taiwan as a friend, and you would be aware that Taiwan National Day was the #1 trend in India just a few days back. How do you describe your relationship with India, and what are your expectations from New Delhi?
Taiwan and India have relations getting better and better. And there is a fever here in Taiwan, craving for India. These couple of years, for example, the Indian movies, the Bollywood movies here in Taiwan are very popular. And I'm very glad to hear that Taiwan is becoming more popular in India as well. And I certainly hope that because of the interpersonal relations or people-to-people relations, that people are fond of each other, that can become a very good foundation for the two governments to build closer relationship with. As soon as we took over, the DPP government took over in 2016, we look at our relations with India as one of the most important relations we need to improve with under the new southbound policy. And I personally oversee an operation in the National Security Council on how to improve our relations with India. So in the area of healthcare, agricultural exchanges, technical exchanges, educational exchanges, and etc., or even trade and economic relations with each other, we see a tremendous progress. And that is something that we would love to see. And we will continue to expand our relations with India. Just for your information, our president has been to India as well, and she was also very fond of India. And I think that is something that we can treasure, that the top leadership here in Taiwan treasure our relations with India. And that is an encouragement for the officials in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other government ministries to continue to improve our relations with India. In 2018, we sealed an agreement with India on bilateral investment. And that is very important for the bilateral economic relations. And we have seen Taiwan's investment in India has been increasing. The total amount of Taiwan investment in India now stands at around $2.3 billion US dollars. And our investment in India has employed roughly 65,000 Indian people, and these are good quality jobs. And we will continue to do that. And if the Indian government is interested in improving the economic and trade relations with Taiwan even further, well, an FTA or similar to FTA type of arrangement between Taiwan and India would certainly improve our economic relations with. The Chinese economic environment has been going downward in the last couple of years because of the trade war or other reasons. And many of the Taiwanese investors in China, they're thinking about moving out of China. And many of them are coming back to Taiwan, but still more thinking about migrating to other countries. And India happens to be a big country with a good population. And we certainly hope that some of the Taiwanese businessmen who are interested in making investment in places other than Taiwan, India can be a very attractive destination. So an FTA between Taiwan and India that can certainly improve the prospect for better trade and economic relations between Taiwan and India.
The world is, as you said, practicing economic distancing from China, and India has benefited while other companies from other countries move out of the mainland. Taiwan's semiconductor industry in particular has also gained. And do you see a possible alliance in this particular field in the future?
Well, people are talking about restructuring of supply chain. And the key philosophy among many other countries are saying that the supply chain should be in the hands of friends. And of course, Taiwan is the democracy. We cannot tell our semiconductor manufacturer or our business people that they can only go somewhere. But I think there's a natural trend or natural philosophy for the businessmen. They will go to the places where they think is the most friendly to them. So for Taiwan's high-tech industries, to make investment in the United States or in Southeast Asia or in India, as long as they feel that this is friends and where they can make their investment in a friendly environment, they will go to. And to me, India is a very friendly place where we have the same philosophy and we have the same value. And if there's going to be any ICT sector, electronic sector, or semiconductor who are willing to make investment in India, the government will try to help them to make sure that they can make a profit in India by speaking with the Indian government about the investment cases.
Right, and business and cultural ties are very important, but you said that the Taiwanese leadership sees India as a very important partner. Is that sentiment reciprocated by the top leadership in India?
I certainly hope so. Even though there's no diplomatic relations between Taiwan and India, it's rather difficult for us to understand the thinking of the top leadership based on our interactions with the Indian government officials or Indian people, businessmen, or opinion leaders. They seem to be very fond of Taiwan. They seem to be very willing to work together with Taiwan. So that is very conducive to bilateral relations. And for your information, you send very popular and very able diplomat to Taiwan. The last diplomat that you sent to Taiwan now is serving in high place in the Indian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And when he was here, I and him worked very closely with each other, and we oversaw the development of very close relations between Taiwan and India. And now you send another very able diplomat to Taiwan, and I work together with him to make sure that the relations between Taiwan and India is working in our interest, in our bilateral interest.
And final question, because you mentioned Bollywood, I'm curious, do you also watch Bollywood films, and which are the films that are popular in Taiwan?
Oh, there's so many of them. To me, personally, is Bahubali. I don't know whether other Taiwanese friends have seen this, but it's being reruns on our television. Every time I see that Bahubali movie, I told my wife not to turn the channel because I want to finish watching it again. And now I don't know how many times I've been watching it. It's just so fun to watch Indian movie. And this is another movie, a father who used to be a wrestler and trained his two daughters to be wrestler champions. Yes, and that is also very popular here in Taiwan. And there's another movie, Hindi Medium, and that is very popular here in Taiwan as well. There's countless of Indian movies that have been shown here in Taiwan. And for your information, we are thinking about having an Indian film festival in Taiwan right now.
That's very good to know. And I have to say your taste in films is very good. You've picked some of the best in Hindi cinema. Thank you very much, Dr. Wu, for your time. Your country has earned a lot of goodwill for itself. And we wish you all the best, and to the people of Taiwan.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be on this show. And I certainly hope that I have chances to visit India again. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.